I want to say hats off to the woman who confronted Matt Chandler about his DMing relationship with another woman. It was announced that Matt Chandler steps aside after an inappropriate online relationship, right? In the article, it says the relationship was not sexual or romantic, Chandler told his church, but the elders believed the frequent and familiar direct messages exchanged over Instagram were unguarded and unwise, and revealed something unhealthy in me. Chandler said he agreed with their assessment and was grateful for the spiritual oversight. Now, because of this woman who approached him in the church, she was the one who had the spiritual discernment. Obviously, Matt himself didn't have the discernment necessary to understand that this could lead to something else, right? And I think a lot of times people think just because it's not sexual or because no inappropriate pictures were exchanged or anything like that, they tend to think, oh, well, he didn't do anything wrong. It's not so much about wrong in that way, but when you're married and you are interacting with someone else of the opposite sex, whether it's in person or whether it's through DMing or texting or whatever, you are developing an attachment to that person, right? It may seem innocent. Oh, her husband knows about it. My wife knows about it. It's no big deal. But in reality, it is a big deal because that is how adultery often begins. It begins with just an innocent, so-called innocent friendship, right? I mean, I think we've all heard of relationships where a husband falls in love with the wife's best friend or the wife falls in love with the husband's best friend. I mean, these things do happen. I mean, when you have these little side relationships like that, anything can happen. So I think if this woman had not approached him, who knows what would have happened? Obviously, it was a building relationship, right? We don't know what would have happened. But I think for me, I feel like if you are interacting with someone of the opposite sex and you're married, you have to ask yourself, what am I getting from this relationship that I'm not getting from my wife? Or what am I getting from this relationship that is somehow bringing me joy? I don't know if that's the word to use, but it's bringing you some level of something, or you wouldn't have this type of a relationship, right? So I think too that the Holy Spirit is always ministering to us as believers, and we can either listen to the Holy Spirit or we can say, oh, maybe it's not the Holy Spirit. This is no big deal. We're friends. My wife knows about it. Her husband knows about it. It's no big deal. So the lesson from this is when the Holy Spirit speaks to you, don't just write it off as, oh, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. I think in this case, it was a big deal. Lord only knows where it could have led, right? And that is my takeaway. And this is embarrassing, but I'm going to share a little personal experience of my own. I am working on a writing project, and this writing project, it's a thing that I'm working on my own. It's about a particular actor who is really cute, and I've had to watch his movies and some interviews he's done. Don't know this person at all, of course. But at some point, I felt like this little nudge, and I believe it was the Holy Spirit nudging me saying, you know what, Lisa? Are you crushing on this guy a little bit too much? And I do believe that was the Holy Spirit. And I started to feel like, what the heck? I think it might be true. And I talked to my husband about it. Because I believed the Holy Spirit was speaking to me about it, I needed to take it seriously, right? And of course, I'm still working on the project, but I did pay attention to that little nugget of information. And I kind of had to stop watching so many of the movies over and over again. No, just kidding. I wasn't watching them over and over again, or the interviews. Actually, I was watching them a little bit too much, right? So the point is, I think that the Holy Spirit is always speaking to us. And in this situation of mine, no, it's not someone I knew. No, it's not someone I'm communicating with. But even in a situation like that, when you're married, you can maybe have this crush or something, this of an act on an actor that may go overboard, right? And I know it may sound silly to you, but to me it wasn't silly. But that's just an example. My point is this: is that the Holy Spirit is always nudging us when we need to be nudged, and we need to pay attention to those little nudgings. And again, I just say hats off to this woman who was concerned enough for the pastor, concerned enough for her friend, that she said something, right? The Holy Spirit spoke to her, gave her the discernment, and she spoke up about it. We all need to do that, right? We all need to do that.